40 years of marriage should have bred unshakable trust, yet I found myself doubting Nicole's every move. It started with the little things: missed calls, hurried texts, and a growing distance between us. My detective instincts, honed over decades in the British Transport Police, were on high alert. Was I paranoid, or was there something more sinister at play? The first inkling came one dreary Tuesday evening. Nicole had always been punctual with her calls, especially when she was out. It was a habit we had developed early in our marriage, a small way to stay connected throughout our busy days. But that night, as I sat in my study sifting through old case files, I realized her usual call was late. Half an hour turned into an hour, and worry gnawed at my mind. When she finally called, her voice was breathless and distant. "Sorry, Fred. I got caught up with Sylvia. You know how she is, always talking," Nicole said. Her words rushed. "Sylvia, huh?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't mention you were meeting her today." "Oh, didn't I? Must have slipped my mind. Anyway, I'll be home soon." I stared at the phone long after the call ended, a nagging doubt creeping in. Sylvia was indeed a chatterbox, but Nicole's tone had been off, like she was hiding something. As days turned into weeks, I began noticing more anomalies. Nicole's phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, now seemed glued to her side. Texts were answered with a furtive glance and a quick tap, always followed by a locked screen. Our conversations, once filled with shared stories and laughter, became stilted and punctuated by awkward silences. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a nature documentary, her phone buzzed. Nicole glanced at it, her face briefly illuminated by the screen's light. She muttered something about needing to get more tea and hurried to the kitchen. I couldn't resist the urge to follow. "Nicole, who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I leaned against the kitchen doorframe. "Oh, just a reminder from the pharmacy about my prescription," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "A reminder this late? It's almost 9 p.m. "Yes, they have this new automated system. It's annoying, really." I nodded, but my mind was racing. Something wasn't right. As a detective, I had learned to trust my instincts. They had guided me through countless cases, helping me unravel complex mysteries and catch criminals. Now those same instincts were telling me that Nicole was hiding something. But what? And why? My suspicions deepened when I found her receipts from places she rarely visited. Boutique shops, expensive cafes, even a charge from a hotel restaurant. I confronted her one night as we sat at the dinner table, the tension between us palpable. "Nicole, I found some receipts in your purse. Why were you at the Grand Hotel?" I asked, keeping my tone calm but firm. She looked up, startled, her fork pausing midair. "Oh, that. I met an old colleague there for lunch. You remember Sarah, right? She was in town for a conference." "Sarah from your teaching days?" I probed further. "Yes, that's the one," she said, her voice a bit too bright, her smile a bit too forced. I nodded, pretending to accept her explanation, but doubt continued to fester. A few days later, as Nicole was out meeting Sylvia again, I decided to follow her. I felt a pang of guilt, but my need for answers was overpowering. I trailed her discreetly to a small cafe across town. Through the window, I saw her sitting alone, fidgeting with her phone. Then a man joined her. He was tall, with dark hair and an easy smile. They talked animatedly, Nicole laughing at something he said. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. I stepped back, my heart pounding. Was this just an innocent meeting, or was there more to it? When Nicole returned home that evening, I tried to act normal, but I couldn't shake the image of her with that man. "Did you have a good time with Sylvia?" I asked as she hung up her coat. "Yes, we had a lovely chat," she replied, avoiding my gaze. I forced a smile. "Glad to hear that." As we settled into bed that night, I lay awake, my mind racing. Trust, once the bedrock of our relationship, was now riddled with cracks. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Nicole turned to me, sensing my restlessness. Fred, is something bothering you? You seem distant lately. I looked at her, searching for any sign of deceit. Just a lot on my mind. Love. Work. Memories. You know how it is. She reached out, her hand warm against mine. I'm here if you need to talk. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I know. Thanks, Nicole. As she drifted off to sleep, I stared at the ceiling, the shadows lengthening around us. Doubt had taken root, and I knew I couldn't rest until I unearthed the truth. I couldn't shake off the feeling that Nicole was hiding something. Her newfound interest in pottery classes and the meticulousness with which she documented her grocery shopping trips seemed out of character. The routine was too perfect, too scripted. My instincts, sharpened by years in the field, screamed that something was amiss. One Wednesday afternoon, I decided to test the waters. I asked her about her day while we prepared dinner together, hoping to catch a glimpse of any inconsistency. How was the pottery class today? I asked, chopping vegetables with deliberate slowness. Nicole paused, her hands deep in the dough she was kneading. It was good. We're working on a new technique. Sylvia joined us too, which made it more fun. I nodded, watching her closely. Sylvia, the chatterbox, I said, trying to sound casual. Did you two grab lunch afterward? She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. No, not today. She had to rush off to an appointment. I filed away the slight delay in her response. Interesting, I thought. It was a small crack, but enough to keep me probing. The following day, I decided to follow her. I told her I had a meeting with some old colleagues, which she accepted without much question. As she left for her pottery class, I waited a few minutes before grabbing my coat and keys, slipping out of the house. I trailed her car discreetly, maintaining a safe distance. She drove to the pottery studio, parked, and went inside. I pulled over across the street, my heart pounding. The studio had large windows, and from my vantage point, I could see her and a few others, including Sylvia. They were indeed working with clay, chatting and laughing. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But normal didn't fit with the nagging feeling in my gut. After the class, she left the studio and headed to the grocery store. I followed, watching her meticulously select items, comparing prices, and checking her list. Nothing about her behavior indicated deceit, yet the entire scene felt staged, as if she knew I might be watching. When she returned home, I decided to confront her subtly. We sat down for dinner, and I steered the conversation towards her day. So, did you manage to get everything from the store? I asked, serving myself some salad. Yes, they had everything I needed, she replied, a touch too breezily. And how was Sylvia? Did she manage to finish her piece? Nicole's fork paused mid-air. Oh yes, she did quite well, actually. I think she's found a new hobby she enjoys. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. That's good to hear. You both seemed pretty engrossed in your work when I passed by the studio. Her eyes widened briefly before she regained her composure. You were there. I had some time before my meeting, so I thought I'd see what this pottery business was all about, I said, shrugging nonchalantly. She forced a smile. You should have come in. We could have used an extra pair of hands. I'll consider it, I replied, watching her closely. Over the next few weeks, I continued my quiet surveillance. I followed her to the pottery class, to Sylvia's house, and to the grocery store. Each time, she was where she said she would be, doing what she claimed to be doing. Yet, the sense of unease grew. One Thursday, I decided to test her further. I called Sylvia, pretending to be looking for Nicole. Hi Sylvia, it's Fred. Is Nicole with you? There was a brief pause. No, she's not. Is everything all right? Yes, everything's fine. She mentioned she might see you today, but I must have misunderstood. Thanks, Sylvia. Anytime. Fred. I hung up, my mind racing. Nicole had lied. She wasn't with Sylvia, and Sylvia had no idea where she was. The puzzle pieces were starting to come together, painting a picture I didn't want to see. That evening, as we settled into bed, I decided to push a bit further. "Nicole, I called Sylvia today." Her body stiffened beside me. "Oh, why?" "I was trying to find you. I thought you were with her." She turned to face me, her eyes wide with surprise and something else. Fear. I must have forgotten to mention I had other plans. "Sorry, Fred. Other plans?" I echoed, my voice calm. "Where were you?" "I went for a walk. I needed some time to myself." The lie hung in the air between us, thick and palpable. I nodded slowly, knowing the time for subtlety was over. The investigation had begun in earnest, and I wouldn't stop until I uncovered the truth. One laundry day, the sight of a white towel in the wash, out of sync with our usual blue and purple sets, jolted me. It didn't belong to our bathroom. This seemingly innocuous detail hinted at a clandestine affair, possibly within our own home. The realization was like a heavy anvil crushing my remaining illusions. It was a crisp Saturday morning when I decided to tackle the laundry. Nicole had always prided herself on keeping a tidy home, and laundry was a chore she meticulously managed. As I sorted through the clothes, separating whites from colors, a strange towel caught my eye. It was white, starkly contrasting with the familiar blue and purple sets we always used. "Nicole, where did this white towel come from?" I called out, holding it up for her to see. She appeared at the doorway, a fleeting look of panic crossing her face before she masked it with a smile. "Oh, that. I found it in the linen closet. Thought we could use some variety." "We've never used white towels before," I said, my voice tinged with suspicion. She shrugged, brushing past me to continue folding a stack of clothes. "Maybe we should. It's just a towel, Fred." Her nonchalance didn't sit right with me. I knew our home inside out. Every nook and cranny, every item meticulously chosen and placed. This towel didn't belong, and the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. Later that night, as Nicole slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, replaying the day's events in my mind. That white towel was an anomaly, an outlier that didn't fit into the orderly pattern of our lives. It hinted at something I was not prepared to face. The next morning, while Nicole was out, I decided to search the house. I started with the linen closet, pulling out every towel and sheet, looking for any signs of recent use or disturbance. The blue and purple towels were all there, neatly stacked, and the white one seemed to be the only oddity. I moved on to the guest bedroom, a room we rarely used. The bed was neatly made, the air slightly stale from disuse. I checked the closet and drawers, finding nothing unusual. But when I looked under the bed, my heart skipped a beat. There, hidden from casual view, was another white towel, slightly crumpled and bearing a faint, unfamiliar scent. Nicole returned home just as I was finishing my search. I tried to act normal, but the discovery weighed heavily on my mind. "How was your day?" she asked, setting down her shopping bags and giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Fine, just did some cleaning," I replied, forcing a smile. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "You seem tense. Is everything all right?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I needed to gather more evidence before confronting her. Over the next few days, I noticed more inconsistencies. Nicole's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would disappear for hours, claiming to be at pottery class or out with Sylvia. Her phone, once an open book, was now always locked and kept close to her side. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I decided to broach the subject again. "Nicole, I've been thinking about that white towel," I said, keeping my tone casual. "It's just strange that we've never used it before." She looked up from her plate, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Fred, are you still on about that?" "It's just a towel." "I know, but it just doesn't fit. I checked the linen closet and didn't find any others like it." She sighed, pushing her plate away. "I don't know what you want me to say. Maybe it was mixed up with the laundry somewhere. Can we just drop it? Her defensiveness only fueled my suspicions. I just want to understand. If there's nothing to hide, why are you so defensive? I'm not defensive, she snapped. I'm just tired of you questioning everything I do. The argument simmered down, but the tension between us was palpable. As she retreated to the living room, I sat at the dining table, my mind racing. The white towel, her evasive answers, the mysterious absences, they all pointed to something deeper, something I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. That night, after Nicole had gone to bed, I returned to the guest bedroom. I stood there in the dim light, the white towel clutched in my hand, a symbol of the growing chasm between us. I knew then that this was no longer just about a towel. It was about trust, or rather, the lack of it. I heard a soft sound behind me and turned to see Nicole standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Fred, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I could ask you the same thing, Nicole. What's going on? What are you hiding from me?" She stepped into the room, her eyes locked on mine. "I'm not hiding anything, Fred. You're imagining things." "Am I?" I held up the towel. "Then explain this." Her eyes flicked to the towel and back to me, a flash of something. Guilt, fear, crossing her face. "It's just a towel," she repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "No, Nicole, it's more than that. And we both know it." She looked away, her shoulders sagging as if a heavy burden had just been placed on them. "Fred, please, let it go." But I couldn't. The unsettling discovery had shattered any remaining illusions I had about our life together. Trust, once lost, is hard to rebuild. And in that moment, I knew our marriage would never be the same. Determined to uncover the truth, I scrutinized our nightly routine. Nicole would bring me whiskey and pills at 8:50 p.m., claiming it helped us sleep better. But why did I always feel unusually lethargic? Suspecting foul play, I started faking taking the pills, waiting for the right moment to confront her. The routine was disturbingly consistent. At precisely 8:50 p.m., Nicole would enter the living room with a glass of whiskey and 2 small pills. I would accept them with a grateful smile, swallowing them down in one gulp, or so she thought. I began hiding the pills under my tongue, spitting them out discreetly into a tissue when she wasn't looking. It didn't take long for me to notice a change. Without the pills, my mind was clear, my senses sharp. I no longer sank into that unnatural lethargy that had plagued me for months. My suspicions grew stronger. What was in those pills? And why was Nicole so insistent that I take them? One evening, as she handed me the whiskey and pills, I decided to probe. "Nicole, do you ever wonder if these pills are really necessary?" I asked, holding them up to the light as if inspecting them. She froze for a split second before laughing lightly. "Of course they are, Fred. The doctor said they'd help us sleep better, remember?" I nodded, pretending to accept her explanation. "Yes, of course. Just curious." As the days passed, I became more meticulous in my investigation. I examined the pills closely, noticing they were different from the usual multivitamins we used to take. One night, while Nicole was in the shower, I slipped into the bathroom and found the pill bottle hidden in the back of the medicine cabinet. The label was faded, but I could make out the word sedative. Armed with this new information, I devised a plan. I needed to catch Nicole in the act, to confirm my suspicions once and for all. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. It was a quiet Thursday evening. Nicole was in the kitchen, preparing our nightly drinks. I watched her from the doorway, my heart pounding. She didn't notice me as she crushed a small pill into my whiskey. My blood ran cold. I quickly returned to the living room, pretending to read a book. Nicole entered moments later, a bright smile on her face. "Here you go, love," she said, handing me the glass. "To a good night's sleep." I took the glass, forcing a smile. "To a good night's sleep," I echoed, raising it to my lips but not drinking. As soon as she turned her back, I poured the whiskey into a potted plant beside me. The game was on. Later that night, I lay in bed, feigning the usual lethargy. I heard Nicole's soft footsteps approaching. She stood by the bed for a moment, then leaned down, her breath warm on my face. "Sleep tight, Fred," she whispered, her voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, perhaps. I waited until I was sure she was asleep before slipping out of bed. I had planted a small camera in the living room earlier, aimed at the spot where she prepared our drinks. The footage would be my proof. The next morning, as Nicole left for her pottery class, I retrieved the camera and watched the recording. My heart raced as I saw her crush the pill and stir it into my drink. There it was, undeniable proof of her deceit. That evening, I decided to confront her. We sat down for dinner, the tension between us almost palpable. "Nicole, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked up, her fork poised midair. "What is it, Fred?" "I know what you've been doing," I said, sliding the pill bottle across the table towards her. Her face went pale. "Fred, Save it," I interrupted, my anger rising. "I've seen the footage. You've been drugging me, Nicole." "Why?" She looked down, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, Fred. I needed you to sleep. I couldn't risk you waking up and finding out." "Finding out what?" I demanded. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry, Fred. I've been seeing someone else. I didn't know how to tell you." The confession hit me like a freight train. I had suspected an affair, but hearing her say it out loud was devastating. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "A man I met at the pottery class," she admitted. "His name is David. It's been going on for a few months." The room spun, my mind reeling. The woman I had loved and trusted for 40 years had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I stood up, my legs shaky. "Nicole, I need you to leave. Pack your things and go." "I can't do this anymore." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, Fred. I'm so sorry." As she left the room, I sank into a chair, my heart heavy with grief and betrayal. The truth had finally been revealed, but it brought no solace. Only the cold, hard reality of a marriage shattered beyond repair. On a Thursday evening, as Nicole left for her pottery class, I seized the opportunity to search the house. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, I sprang into action. Wearing needle gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints, I combed through every room, my mind focused on one goal: finding definitive proof of her betrayal. I started in the kitchen, where she prepared our nightly drinks. I rummaged through the cabinets, checking for hidden compartments or unusual items. Nothing. I moved on to the living room, pulling books from the shelves, inspecting behind picture frames. Still nothing. My frustration mounted, but I couldn't afford to give up. The bedroom was my next target. I searched through the nightstands, dresser drawers, and under the bed. As I pulled back the covers, something caught my eye. Tucked beneath the mattress was a small, unmarked bottle. My hands trembled as I unscrewed the cap and sniffed the contents. The faint, medicinal odor was unmistakable. These were the pills she'd been giving me. My heart pounded with a mix of betrayal and resolve. I needed to be sure. I carried the bottle to the bathroom and compared one of the pills to the multivitamins we used to take. They were different, smaller, white, and tasteless. These weren't vitamins. They were sedatives. I clutched the bottle, my knuckles white. Nicole had been drugging me, making me vulnerable and unaware. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow. I had loved her, trusted her, and she had repaid me with deceit. As I stood there, grappling with my emotions, I heard the front door open. Nicole was back earlier than expected. I quickly pocketed the bottle and composed myself. The confrontation was imminent, and I needed to be ready. She walked into the living room, her face lighting up with a smile that quickly faded when she saw my expression. "Fred, "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I held up the bottle, my eyes boring into hers. "What's this, Nicole?" Her face went pale. "Fred, I can explain." "Explain? You've been drugging me, Nicole. These aren't vitamins. They're sedatives," I shouted, my anger boiling over. She took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. "Fred, please, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know what else to do." "Why? Why would you do this to me?" I demanded, my voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face as she sank into a chair. "I was afraid, Fred. Afraid you'd find out about David. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't stop seeing him. David," I spat the name like a curse. "The man from your pottery class. How long, Nicole? How long have you been betraying me?" "A few months," she whispered, unable to meet my gaze. "A few months," I repeated, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. 40 years of marriage, and you throw it all away for a few months with another man." She sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "I'm so sorry, Fred. I never wanted this to happen. I love you." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "This isn't love, Nicole. Love doesn't drug your spouse and cheat behind their back." Silence hung heavy in the room, broken only by Nicole's sobs. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on my shoulders. "You need to leave, Nicole," I said finally, my voice hollow. "Pack your things and go. I can't look at you right now." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "Fred, please, we can work this out. I'll stop seeing him. We can fix this." "There's nothing left to fix," I replied, my voice cold. "You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." She stood slowly, her movements shaky. "I'll go pack," she said quietly, her voice thick with regret. I watched her leave the room, the woman I had once loved reduced to a stranger. The confrontation had shattered any remaining illusions I had about our life together. Trust was gone, replaced by a deep, aching void. As I sat there, staring at the bottle of pills in my hand, I knew one thing for certain. My life would never be the same again. That weekend, I planted a spare remote control for the home alarm system under the bedside table. The small device felt like a lifeline, a tangible symbol of my plan to uncover the truth. I needed to catch Nicole and her lover red-handed, and this was the best way to do it. On Saturday night, Nicole went through our routine with practiced ease. She handed me my whiskey and sedatives at 8:50 p.m., flashing me a bright, innocent smile. I pretended to swallow the pills, but as soon as she turned away, I spat them into the tissue I kept hidden in my pocket. I lay in bed, feigning the usual lethargy, waiting for her to make her move. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, I heard the faint sound of the front door opening. My heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread. This was it. I listened intently, straining to catch every sound. Footsteps echoed softly from downstairs, followed by hushed whispers and low laughter. Nicole's voice mingled with a deeper, masculine tone. They were here. With shaking hands, I reached under the bedside table and grasped the remote control. I waited, giving them time to settle, to get comfortable. Then, with a sense of grim satisfaction, I pressed the alarm button. The blaring siren shattered the silence, reverberating through the house with deafening intensity. I heard a startled cry from downstairs, followed by the frantic scuffling of feet. The ensuing chaos was music to my ears. I threw off the covers and made my way downstairs, my footsteps firm and deliberate. When I reached the living room, the sight that greeted me was exactly what I had expected. Nicole stood frozen in the middle of the room, her face a mask of shock and panic. Beside her was a man I recognized from the pottery studio, David. "Fred." Nicole's voice was high-pitched, almost hysterical. "What's going on? Why is the alarm going off?" I ignored her, my eyes fixed on David. "You must be David," I said coldly. "The man who's been sneaking into my house and into my wife's bed." David's face paled, and he took a step back, raising his hands defensively. "Look, man, I didn't know." "Save it," I snapped. "I've seen enough. Both of you, get out. Now." Nichols' composure cracked completely. She rushed towards me, her eyes wide with desperation. "Fred, please, let me explain. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I replied, my voice icy. "I gave you a chance to come clean, and you lied to my face. We're done, Nicole. Get out of my house." Tears streamed down her face as she looked from me to David, then back to me. "Fred, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Don't throw everything away because of this." I felt a pang of sorrow, but quickly buried it under a wave of anger. "You threw everything away the moment you decided to betray me," I said quietly. "Now leave." David hesitated, then placed a hand on Nicole's shoulder. "Come on, Nicole. Let's go." She looked at him, then back at me, her expression one of utter defeat. Without another word, she turned and followed David out the door. I watched them go, my heart heavy with a mix of vindication and profound sadness. As the door closed behind them, the silence that followed was almost suffocating. I stood in the empty living room, the weight of the night's events settling on my shoulders. I had the proof I needed, but it brought no comfort. I turned off the alarm and sat down on the couch, staring blankly at the spot where Nicole and David had stood. The house, once filled with warmth and love, now felt cold and empty. The reality of my situation hit me with brutal clarity. My marriage was over, and I was alone. In the days that followed, I began the painful process of moving on. I packed up Nicole's things, each item a reminder of the life we had built together. It was a life now shattered beyond repair. One afternoon, as I was sorting through a box of photographs, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Nicole standing there, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Fred," she said softly, "can we talk?" I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. "There's nothing left to say, Nicole. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know. I'm so sorry." I looked at her, the woman I had loved for so many years, and felt a deep sadness. "So am I said quietly. "Goodbye, Nicole." I closed the door, shutting out the past and facing the uncertain future. It was time to rebuild my life, one step at a time. And though the road ahead was daunting, I knew I had the strength to walk it alone. The days following Nicole's departure were a blur of police reports, court appearances, and media frenzy. The discovery of her affair and the subsequent confrontation had only been the beginning. The real storm hit when the police got involved. It turned out that David, whose real name was Billy, was not just any lover but our neighbor, a fact that added another layer of betrayal to the already painful ordeal. The evidence I had gathered, combined with Billy's criminal background, led to their swift arrest. Nicole and Billy faced severe charges. Nicole for abuse of office and conspiracy to commit fraud, and Billy for malicious use of drugs and fraud. The community, once a bastion of quiet suburbia, was rocked by the scandal. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and the media camped outside my house, eager for any scraps of new information. The privacy I had cherished was now a distant memory. One evening, as I sat in my study, sifting through the pile of legal documents, I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find Detective Harris, the officer leading the case. "Evening, Fred," he said, removing his hat and stepping inside. "May I have a word?" "Of course, Detective," I replied, motioning for him to sit. "What's the latest?" Harris sighed, rubbing his temples. "We've got solid evidence against both Nicole and Billy. She's looking at 4 years for abuse of office and conspiracy to commit fraud. Billy's facing 8 years for the drugs and fraud charges. They'll be put away for a long time." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. It's hard to believe this is happening. 40 years of marriage, And it ends like this. Harris gave me a sympathetic look. I can't imagine what you're going through, Fred. It's a tough break. But you did the right thing, coming forward with the evidence. You stopped them from causing more harm. Thank you, Detective, I said, my voice heavy. I just want to put this all behind me. He stood, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You will, Fred. It'll take time, but you'll get through this. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call. After he left, I sat alone in the dimly lit room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The house felt empty, haunted by memories of happier times. The silence was deafening. A few days later, I received a call from my son, James. He had been abroad on business when the scandal broke, and his shock mirrored my own. Dad, I can't believe it, James said, his voice filled with disbelief. Mom and Billy, how did it get this far? I wish I had answers, James, I replied, staring out the window at the gathering dusk. But it is what it is. We have to move forward. I'm coming home, Dad, he said firmly. You shouldn't be alone right now. Thank you, son, I said, feeling a swell of gratitude. I could use the company. James's return brought a semblance of normalcy back into my life. We spent hours talking, reminiscing about the past and planning for the future. His presence was a balm for my wounded heart, a reminder that not all was lost. One afternoon, as we were sorting through some old photographs, James looked at me, his expression serious. Dad, what are you going to do now? With the house, I mean. I sighed, looking around the room filled with memories. I don't know, James. Part of me wants to sell it, start fresh somewhere new. But this is our home. Your mother and I built our lives here. He nodded thoughtfully. Maybe a change would be good. A new start could help you heal. Perhaps, I said, contemplating the idea. It's a big decision. I'll need some time to think about it. As the weeks turned into months, the trial progressed, and the media frenzy gradually died down. Nicole was sentenced to 4 years in prison, her reputation in ruins. Billy received an 8-year sentence, with additional charges for his criminal activities. Justice had been served, but the cost was high. The day Nicole was taken away was a surreal experience. I watched from a distance as she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her face a mixture of regret and resignation. Our eyes met briefly, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I had once loved. But that person was gone, replaced by a stranger who had betrayed everything we had built together. James and I stood outside the courthouse, the chill of the autumn air biting through our coats. He placed a supportive arm around my shoulders. You did the right thing, Dad, he said quietly. Now it's time to focus on yourself. I nodded, feeling the sense of closure. You're right, James. It's time to move on. As we walked away, I felt a newfound resolve. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to rebuild my life, one step at a time. The pieces of my shattered world would eventually come together, and though the scars would remain, I would emerge stronger. Nicole's betrayal had been a devastating blow, but it had also revealed a resilience I never knew I possessed. And with my son by my side, I knew I could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The aftermath was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one where I would learn to trust again, to find peace, and ultimately, to rediscover the strength within myself. In the midst of the turmoil, I found an unexpected ally in Kimberly, Billy's former wife. Like me, she had been blindsided by the betrayal and left to pick up the pieces of a life shattered by deceit. Our shared pain created a bond that neither of us anticipated, a connection born out of mutual heartbreak. It began with a simple phone call. I had been struggling to make sense of everything, and I thought perhaps she was too. Kimberly, it's Fred Brown, I said when she answered. I hope I'm not intruding, but I thought we might talk. This situation has been hard on both of us. Her voice was weary but kind. Fred, I'm glad you called. I've been feeling so lost and alone. Maybe we can help each other through this. We met at a small cafe in town, away from the prying eyes of our neighbors and the relentless media. When I walked in, I saw her sitting in a corner booth, staring out the window with a distant look in her eyes. She looked up as I approached, her face lighting up with a sad smile. "Fred," she said, standing to greet me. "It's good to see you, despite the circumstances." I nodded, shaking her hand. "It's good to see you too, Kimberly. Please, sit." We spent the next few hours talking, sharing our stories, our pain, and our confusion. Kimberly was articulate and insightful, her words resonating deeply with my own experiences. It was as if she was giving voice to the thoughts and feelings I had struggled to express. "How could they do this to us?" she asked, her eyes welling up with tears. "I thought Billy and I had a good marriage. Sure, we had our problems, but who doesn't? I never imagined he would betray me like this." "I know," I said softly. "Nicole and I had been married for 40 years. I thought I knew her inside and out, but now I don't know what to believe." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We'll get through this, Fred. Somehow, we'll find a way." Our meetings became a regular occurrence. We found solace in each other's company, a shared understanding that transcended words. We would meet at the cafe, go for walks in the park, or simply sit and talk for hours. Kimberly's presence was a balm for my wounded heart, her strength and resilience inspiring me to find my own. One evening, as we walked along the lake, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and gold, Kimberly turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Fred, do you ever wonder if we'll be able to trust again, to love again?" I sighed, looking out at the water. "I do wonder. Trust has been so thoroughly shattered, but I believe we can. It will take time, and it won't be easy, but we can rebuild." She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think you're right. And maybe we can help each other." Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken possibilities. In that moment, I realized that my feelings for Kimberly had grown beyond mere friendship. She had become a source of light in the darkness, a reminder that life could still hold beauty and hope. As the weeks turned into months, our bond deepened. We spent holidays together, supported each other through the difficult moments, and celebrated small victories. Kimberly became a fixture in my life, her presence a constant source of comfort and joy. One evening, as we sat by the fire in my living room, sipping tea and talking about everything and nothing, I felt a shift. Kimberly looked at me, her eyes warm and inviting. "Fred, I need to tell you something," she said softly, setting her cup down. "I've come to care for you deeply, more than I ever thought possible after everything that's happened." My heart skipped a beat. "Kimberly, I feel the same way. You've brought light back into my life when I thought it was gone forever." She smiled, reaching out to take my hand. "I think we found something special, Fred. Something worth holding on to." I squeezed her hand, feeling a sense of peace and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. "I agree. Let's take this journey together, one step at a time." Our relationship blossomed from that moment. What started as mutual support had indeed grown into something deeper. We found love in each other, a love forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by our shared strength and resilience. Kimberly moved in with me a few months later. Our home, once a place of painful memories, became a sanctuary of love and healing. We built new traditions, created new memories, and faced the future with hope and determination. One afternoon, as we sat in the garden, Kimberly turned to me, her eyes shining with happiness. "Fred, I never thought I'd find love again, especially not like this. You've given me a second chance at happiness." I smiled, leaning in to kiss her. "And you've given me the same, Kimberly." Together, we found something beautiful amidst the ruins. I'm grateful every day for you. As we embraced, I realized that the pain of the past had led us to this moment, to each other. The unexpected bond we had formed was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and to the enduring power of love. Kimberly and I decided to leave our painful pasts behind and start afresh. The decision came after months of contemplation and numerous conversations about what we both truly wanted. We realized that our hometown, with its prying eyes and relentless gossip, was a constant reminder of our betrayal and heartbreak. We needed a fresh start, a place where we could heal and build a new life together. After much research and discussion, we found the perfect place, a secluded villa in the south of France. The moment we saw the photos of the charming stone house nestled among rolling vineyards, with its lush gardens and picturesque views, we knew it was the sanctuary we had been searching for. Our move was a whirlwind of packing, farewells, and anticipation. The day we arrived at our new home, the sun was shining brightly, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. The air was filled with the sweet scent of lavender and the distant hum of bees. It felt like a new beginning in every sense. As we stood outside the villa, taking in the beauty of our surroundings, Kimberly turned to me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Fred, can you believe it? This place is like a dream," she said, her voice filled with awe. I smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It really is, Kimberly. This is our fresh start, our chance to build something beautiful together." The days that followed were filled with joy and discovery. We explored the villa, uncovering hidden nooks and charming details that made it feel like home. We spent mornings sipping coffee on the terrace, watching the sunrise over the vineyards, and evenings cooking together in the spacious kitchen, laughing and talking about our dreams for the future. One afternoon, as we wandered through the nearby village, we stumbled upon a quaint little market. The vibrant colors of fresh produce, the enticing aromas of baked goods, and the friendly chatter of locals created a sense of belonging that we hadn't felt in a long time. "Look at these, Fred," Kimberly said, holding up a basket of plump, ripe strawberries. "We should get some for dessert tonight." I nodded, smiling. "And maybe some of that fresh bread, too. It smells amazing." As we walked back to the villa, our arms laden with delicious finds, I felt a profound sense of contentment. This was what we had been searching for, a simple, joyful life where we could focus on each other and the things that truly mattered. Our relationship grew stronger as we healed together. The wounds of the past slowly faded, replaced by the vibrant colors of our new life. We found joy in simple pleasures, gardening in the sunshine, taking long walks through the vineyards, and sharing quiet evenings by the fire. One evening, as we sat on the terrace, watching the stars twinkle in the clear night sky, Kimberly turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Fred, do you ever think about the future, about what we want to build together?" I took her hand, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "I do, Kimberly. I think about it all the time. I want us to create a life filled with love, laughter, and adventure. I want us to grow old together in this beautiful place." She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "That sounds perfect, Fred. I couldn't ask for anything more." As the weeks turned into months, we settled into a comfortable routine. We made new friends in the village, learned to speak French, and embraced the local culture. Our days were filled with happiness and purpose, and our nights were filled with love and contentment. One sunny afternoon, as we worked in the garden, planting flowers and tending to the vegetables, Kimberly paused, looking at me with a smile. "Fred, I've been thinking, what if we opened a little bed and breakfast? We have the space, and it would be a wonderful way to share this beautiful place with others." I considered her idea, feeling a spark of excitement. "That's a fantastic idea, Kimberly. We could host guests, share our love for this place, and maybe even create a little community here." She grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let's do it, Fred. Let's create something special together." And so we began our new venture. We spent months renovating and preparing the villa, transforming it into a welcoming haven for travelers. We poured our hearts into every detail, from the cozy guest rooms to the inviting common areas, filled with local art and fresh flowers. The day we welcomed our first guests was a milestone in our journey. As we stood together at the entrance, Greeting visitors with warm smiles and open arms, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. We had turned our pain into something beautiful, creating a new life filled with love, purpose, and joy. One evening, after our guests had retired for the night, Kimberly and I sat on the terrace, sipping wine and reflecting on our journey. "Fred, we've come so far," she said softly, her hand resting on mine. "I'm so grateful for you, for us, and for this beautiful life we've built together." I squeezed her hand, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "I'm grateful too, Kimberly. We've turned our heartbreak into something wonderful. Here's to many more happy years together." As we clinked our glasses, the stars shone brightly above us, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a new beginning. And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of our new home and the love we shared, I knew that we had found our forever place. Living with Kimberly was like a breath of fresh air. Her beauty, intelligence, and resilience amazed me every day. Despite everything she had been through, she loved wholeheartedly and embraced all my shortcomings. Together, we built a life based on trust, honesty, and unwavering support, a partnership forged in the fires of adversity. In the early mornings, I often found Kimberly in the garden, her hands deep in the soil as she tended to our flowers and vegetables. The sun would cast a golden halo around her, highlighting the natural grace and strength that had drawn me to her. "Morning, love," I said one day, joining her by the rose bushes. She looked up, her face lighting up with a smile. "Morning, Fred. Come to help me with these stubborn weeds." I laughed, grabbing a trowel. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Besides, I enjoy spending time with you out here. As we worked side by side, our conversations flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from our plans for the day to our dreams for the future. It was in these moments that I truly appreciated the depth of our connection. Kimberly's presence was a soothing balm, her laughter a melody that brightened my days. One evening, as we prepared dinner together in our cozy kitchen, Kimberly turned to me, her expression serious. "Fred, I've been thinking about our journey, about how far we've come," she said, her voice thoughtful. I set down the knife I was using to chop vegetables and looked at her, giving her my full attention. "What's on your mind, Kimberly?" She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. "I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for trusting me, for believing in us. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm grateful for every moment we've shared." I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around her. "I should be the one thanking you, Kimberly. You've brought so much joy and love into my life. I can't imagine going through this journey with anyone else." She leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. "We're a team, Fred, and together, we can face anything." Our days were filled with the simple pleasures of life, cooking meals together, exploring the countryside, and sharing quiet evenings by the fire. Each day was a testament to the trust and love we had built, a foundation that grew stronger with every passing moment. One sunny afternoon, as we sat on the terrace enjoying a leisurely lunch, Kimberly reached across the table and took my hand. "Fred, I've been thinking about how we can give back to the community here. We've been so blessed, and I want to share that with others." I nodded, squeezing her hand. "I've been thinking the same thing. Maybe we could start a local charity or support the village school. What do you think?" Her eyes lit up with excitement. "That's a wonderful idea. We could offer scholarships, organize events, and really make a difference." And so we began our philanthropic endeavors. We hosted fundraisers at the villa, inviting locals and travelers alike to join us in supporting various causes. It brought us closer to the community and gave us a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Our relationship continued to deepen, grounded in the unwavering trust and love we had for each other. We were open and honest about our fears and dreams, supporting each other through every challenge and celebrating each victory. One evening, as we sat by the fire, sipping wine and listening to the crackling of the logs, Kimberly looked at me, her eyes filled with emotion. "Fred, do you ever think about the future? About growing old together?" I smiled, taking her hand in mine. Every day, Kimberly, I look forward to all the adventures we'll share, the memories we'll create. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She leaned in, her lips brushing against mine. I feel the same way, Fred. With you, I've found a love that's true and enduring. As we embraced, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. Our journey had been filled with ups and downs, but through it all, we had found something rare and beautiful. Our love was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. Living with Kimberly was indeed a breath of fresh air. Her beauty, intelligence, and resilience continued to amaze me every day. Despite everything she had been through, she loved wholeheartedly and embraced all my shortcomings. Together, we had built a life based on trust, honesty, and unwavering support. And as we looked toward the future, we knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, hand in hand, with love as our guide. As the years passed, Kimberly and I found a sense of peace and fulfillment we had never known before. Our life in the south of France, surrounded by the beauty of nature and the warmth of our community, became a sanctuary. We faced the future with hope and gratitude, knowing that we had each other to lean on. Our journey from betrayal to love taught us the true meaning of resilience and the power of second chances. And so we moved forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever life had in store for us. Our days were a tapestry of shared moments and simple pleasures. We started each morning with a walk through the vineyards, the cool breeze carrying the scent of lavender and freshly turned earth. The rhythm of our footsteps, the sound of birdsong, and the sight of the sun rising over the hills were reminders of how far we had come. One crisp autumn morning, as we walked along our usual path, Kimberly turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Fred, do you remember the first time we walked here?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the golden hues of the season. I smiled, recalling that day vividly. "Of course I do. You were so excited about the grape harvest, and we ended up helping the locals. It was the beginning of our new life here." She laughed softly. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have found someone who shared my sense of adventure and my love for this place. We continued our walk in companionable silence, each step a testament to the bond we had forged. The seasons changed, but our love remained a constant source of strength and joy. Our bed and breakfast flourished, becoming a beloved retreat for travelers seeking tranquility and inspiration. We welcomed guests from all over the world, sharing our story and the beauty of our home. Each visitor brought new perspectives and stories, enriching our lives in ways we never expected. One evening, after our guests had retired for the night, Kimberly and I sat on the terrace, sipping wine and watching the stars twinkle in the clear night sky. "Fred, I've been thinking about how much we've accomplished together," she said, her voice filled with pride. "This place, our life here, it's more than I ever dreamed of." I reached over, taking her hand in mine. "We've built something incredible, Kimberly, and it's because we believed in each other and never gave up." She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "We've come a long way from those dark days. I'm so grateful for you, for us, and for this beautiful life we've created." I leaned in, kissing her gently. "And I'm grateful for you, Kimberly. You've shown me the true meaning of love and resilience." As the years went by, our love only deepened. We celebrated milestones and anniversaries, each one a testament to the strength of our bond. We supported each other through challenges, always emerging stronger and more united. One winter evening, as we sat by the fire, Kimberly turned to me with a contemplative look. "Fred, what do you think the future holds for us?" she asked, her voice soft. I gazed at her, feeling a rush of affection. "I think the future holds more adventures, more love, and more memories. We've faced so much together, and I know we can handle whatever comes our way." She nodded, a smile playing on her lips. "I believe that too. As long as we're together, we can face anything." Our lives were filled with purpose and meaning, each day an opportunity to grow and learn. We traveled, explored new passions, and continued to make a positive impact on our community. Our journey from betrayal to love had transformed us, teaching us the true meaning of resilience and the power of second chances. One spring afternoon, as we worked in the garden, planting new flowers and tending to our vegetables, Kimberly looked at me, her expression serene. "Fred, I feel so at peace here. This life we've built. It's everything I ever wanted." I paused, looking around at the vibrant colors and the life we had nurtured together. "It's more than I ever imagined, Kimberly, and it's all because of you." She reached out, her hand resting on mine. "No, it's because of us. We did this together, and that's what makes it so special." As we stood there, surrounded by the fruits of our labor and the beauty of our home, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Our journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been rich with love and joy. We had moved forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever life had in store for us. Our story was one of resilience, second chances, and the enduring power of love. And as we looked to the future, we knew that together, we could conquer any obstacle and embrace every opportunity. Our hearts were full, our spirits were strong, and our love was unbreakable. The sun set on another beautiful day in our villa, casting a warm glow over the landscape. As we watched the sky turn shades of pink and orange, Kimberly leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Fred, this is just the beginning, isn't it?" I kissed the top of her head, feeling the surge of love and contentment. "Yes, Kimberly, it is. And I can't wait to see where our journey takes us next." With our hands intertwined and our hearts united, we faced the future with hope, gratitude, and unwavering love. Our story was far from over, and we were ready to write the next chapter together, one filled with promise, adventure, and endless possibilities.